Hey, y'all, and welcome to this week's Womanly Wisdom Wednesday, Episode 3. So, in this series, we are going over The Power of a Praying Wife by Stormy O'Martian. This book teaches us how and why we should be praying for our husbands. Now, disclosure, I did not write this book. I am not in any way connected to this book other than I have read it and made my prayer binder based on this book. The content in this video is for educational purposes only. Well, also encouragement and inspiration. The content in this video gives a simple and quick overview on introducing what this book is. Now, I'm not feeling 100%, so I may need to take pauses, sorry. Please excuse me for coughing and stuff. So, as you can tell by this list, this chapter is pretty lengthy, actually. I think it's the longest chapter in this book. And because I try to keep my videos relatively short, we'll be breaking this chapter down into different sections. So, for this episode, we'll be going over the first 3 sections, which are my favorite 3-word prayer, who me, change, and the ultimate love language. And so here is the first snapshot. And the title of this chapter is His Wife. And it says, the hard part about being a praying wife, other than the sacrifice of time, is maintaining a pure heart. It must be clean before God in order for you to see good results. That's why praying for a husband must begin with praying for his wife. If you have resentment, anger, unforgiveness, or an ungodly attitude, even if there's good reason for it, you'll have a difficult time seeing answers to your prayers. But if you can release those feelings to God in total honesty and then move into prayer, there is nothing that can change a marriage more dramatically. Sometimes wives sabotage their own prayers because they don't pray them from a right heart. It took me a while to figure that out. It is a bit of a learning process, I think, for all of us. And so now we come to our first section. It says, my favorite 3-word prayer. Instead of change him, Lord, change me, Lord. It took a number of years for me to realize my husband was never going to conform to my image. It took a few years beyond that to understand I couldn't make him change in my way. In fact, it wasn't until I started going to God with what bothered me that I began to see any difference at all. And then it didn't happen the way I thought it would. I was the one God worked on first. I was the one who began to change. My heart had to be softened, humbled, pummeled, modeled, molded, and reconstructed before he even started working on my husband. I had to learn to see things according to the way God saw them, not how I thought they should be. I think that's a very key component to all of this. That's like the starting point. And on to the next section. Who, me, change? And we come to our first scripture, which is found in Psalms, chapter 66, verse 18 in the Amplified. If I regard sin and baseness in my heart, that is, if I know it is there and do nothing about it, the Lord will not hear me. And this is scripture. It's very true. You need to have your heart right before you start praying. This whole requirement is especially hard when you feel your husband has sinned against you with unkindness, lack of respect, indifference, irresponsibility, infidelity, abandonment, cruelty, or abuse. But God considers the sins of unforgiveness, anger, hatred, self-pity, lovelessness, and revenge to be just as bad as any others. Confess them and ask God to set you free from anything that is not of Him. One of the greatest gifts you can give your husband is your own wholeness. The most effective tool in transforming him may be your own transformation. And I've heard that this truly is the case in multiple marriages. Okay, I gotta scroll into this one a little bit. Painful, yes. Dying to yourself is always painful, especially when you are convinced that the other person needs more changing than you. But this kind of pain leads to life. The other alternative is just as painful, and its ultimate end is the death of a dream. It's the death of a relationship, a marriage, and a family. God can resurrect the deadest of marriages, but it takes humbling ourselves before Him and desiring to live His way. Forgiveness, kindness, and love. It means letting go of the past and all hurt associated with it and begin willing to lose the argument in order to win the battle. I'm not saying you have to become a person void of personality, feelings, or thoughts of your own, or be the whipping post of a husband's whim. God doesn't require that of you. And in fact, if you are in any kind of physical or emotional danger, remove yourself immediately from the situation to a place of safety. Your safety comes first. It is more important. Next, we go to Matthew chapter 10, verse 39 in the Amplified. Whoever finds his life in this world will eventually lose it through death. And whoever loses his life in this world for my sake will find it. That is, life with me for all eternity. The ultimate love language, our last section for today. Talking to God about your husband is an act of love. Prayer gives rise to love. Love begets more prayer, which in turn gives rise to more love. Even if your praying is not born out of completely selfless motives, your motives will become more unselfish as prayer continues. You'll find yourself more loving in your responses. You'll notice that issues which formerly caused strife between you will no longer do that. You'll be able to come to mutual agreements without a fight. This unity is vital. So now we go to Matthew chapter 12, verse 25 in the Amplified. Knowing their thoughts, Jesus said to them, "Any kingdom that is divided against itself is being laid waste, and no city or house divided against itself will continue to stand." So let's expand on that and go to the next verse, verse 26. If Satan casts out Satan, that is, his demons, he has become divided against himself and disunited. How then will his kingdom stand? And this is a perfect example for our marriage. We need to build each other up so that we can stand united the way that God intended for us. This concludes this episode of Womanly Wisdom Wednesday for this week. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them. I'll answer as soon as I can. Much love, and may peace be with y'all. God bless.